إننا جد سعداء وكلنا فخر واعتزاز لما يقدمه علماؤنا المغاربة من اختراعات مهمة ساهمت وتساهم في تطوير البشرية، من بينهم العالم والبروفيسور والمخترع والمهندس المغربي السيد بروفيسور رشيد اليزمي. السيد رشيد، أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا بكم معنا في هذا اللقاء الشيق، ومرحبا بكم. الكلمة لكم سيدي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. دكتور نبيل بالمكي، شكرا جزيلا على الدعوة، وكما قال الأستاذ طلال أبو غزالة قبلتها في الثانية الأولى لما اتصلت بي، لأن هذا الموضوع ديال هذا المؤتمر مهم جدا طبعا، وكما قلت أن أول مؤتمر لسنة 2022 بالنسبة لكم، ولكن بالنسبة لي أنا في سنغافورة هذا المؤتمر الثاني ولا الثالث لأن هذا يعني ما يسمى بالتكنولوجيا الجديدة ديال الاتصالات جعلتنا أننا رغم البعد المسافة ما بين الناس يعني في الدول متقاربين، لأن الإنترنت جعلنا نكون يعني متصلين علينا 24 ساعة يوميا. طبعا أود أن أحيي جميع الأصدقاء والزملاء الأساتذة الموجودين معنا، خصوصا الأستاذ البروفيسور حسن الصحبي رئيس جامعة مولاي إسماعيل بمكناس، والزملاء الأساتذة الآخرين كل واحد باسمه إلى آخره. يمكن لي أن يعني أقوم بهذا يعني الخطاب بالعربية، ما عندي مشكل. ويعني ما قام به الأستاذ طلال أبو غزالة من قبلي فهمته 100%، وكاين أشياء اللي يعني طبعا عنده صحيحة جدا، وبعض الأشياء اللي يمكن لي يعني نزيد فيها بعض المعلومات. وأولا أود أن أشكره طبعا، وأن أقول له يعني تقديري بما قاله بأن في يعني معهده لا يقومون بامتحانات، ما يطلبون هو الابتكار، وهذا شيء جديد وأنا أصفق له، لأن مساري يعني العلمي طويل جدا، كما يعني بعض الإخوان يعلمون أني من مواليد مدينة فاس، و يعني أخذت بكالوريا في علوم رياضيات في 1972 في ثانوية مولاي إدريس بمدينة فاس. وفي سنة 1972 مشيت لفرنسا، يعني درست فيها الهندسة، ومن بعد دخلت لي الدكتوراه، وخدت الدكتوراه تاعي في 1985. ومن بعد دخلت للمعهد الوطني للبحث العلمي سانرس في باريس، وعملت فيه من 1985 إلى سنة 2019، هذه عامين ونصف. وصلت لي العمر اللي الواحد ياخذ فيه التقاعد إذا تقاعدت، ولكن يعني الدبلوم الهندسة ديالي كان دبلوم مهم جدا، هو اللي عطاني يعني المسيرة ديالي في البحث العلمي وإلى آخره، لأن مهندس دائما يبحث عن وجود حل لمشكل تكنولوجي إلى آخره. إذا سمحوا لي إذا يعني دست من اللغة العربية إلى اللغة الإنجليزية باش يكون العمل الناس اللي ما يفهموش العربية يكونوا يتبعوا معنا. So again, thank you very much, Dr. Nabil Bilmaki, for the invitation, and thank you everybody for this opportunity to meet and discuss this very, very important topic. And actually, I have a little not too much to say after the intervention of Professor Talal Abu Ghazala. which was really very enlightening and very open. And I would be very, very happy and honored to meet him in person, because he has a very, incredible, journey in the United Nations, and a professor, and he has many, many things that I'm curious to share with him and see how his journey can influence me. I'm still, a researcher. I'm still working on technology until now. I'm running a company here in Singapore, and this company is actually about, using artificial intelligence, new tools to solve some of the problem of energy storage, and especially lithium batteries, which I was one of the inventors back to 1980, and it gave me actually the honor to receive the Draper Prize in the United States, which is the Nobel Prize in Engineering. That was in 2014, and I was honored also to be decorated by His Majesty the King Mohammed VI during the Throne Day, the National Day, in 2014, in July 2014, and then the President of France decorated me, and I had many other decorations from, the Arab countries and so on. But I have never had the chance to visit Ordon, so I will be happy to come one day and just meet with Professor Talal and just exchange with him, our mutual experiences. Okay, so actually, yeah, when Professor Talal said that the computer revolution, the numerical, the digital revolution started in the 60s, I fully agree with him. And actually, I had a professor in science when I was just a student at age maybe 14 or 15 years. It was in the 60s. And this professor asked us to write, to have like this card that is used in a computer with some holes and so on to write a small program, which we did. Okay, and that was in the 60s. Then what happened is that in the 80s, I was in the middle of the last year, almost the last year of my PhD project. And I had a chance actually to be invited by a professor, very famous professor at the MIT, just a visitor. It was during the winter holidays, the Christmas holidays and the New Year. And she invited me to come and just have a tour in her lab. And one of her questions, she said, "Can you give a lecture?" I said, "No, I'm in holidays. I haven't prepared anything. I have no slides, nothing to present." She said, "Oh, but you have your manuscript, your PhD manuscript." I said, "Yes." "Okay, give it to me." And she made slides, the transparencies at that time, overhead transparencies. But the most important thing, I was in the MIT. It was 10 a.m. She went to her computer, which was a big computer at that time, and she announced, I wasn't doctor at that time, but Dr. Rachid Yazami will give a lecture at this room at 12 noon. And I had more than 150 people in the room. I said, wow, this is magic. Actually, that was the beginning of the intranet, 1984. And it started from the MIT. And I said, wow, I was really impressed that before we have to announce it, to put some ads on the walls and the posters and so on to, announce a conference like days or weeks before. But that in 2 hours, the information came and I was able to give my lecture. And it was very interesting because it was noon. So people came, this is the MIT, this is America. And actually all the famous, people who developed the new technologies in the world are mostly Americans. That's Professor Talal has cited. And America is still now where the technology, the innovation is the most impressive. And I think this is what I liked about, spending time there. And then a few years later, after I passed my PhD, I visited the Kyoto University in Japan. And I spent 2 years there. And I had the chance actually to learn the language. This is the first thing I said, I want to learn Japanese. And they give me the opportunity to go to a school And this was part of my experience, in Japan. And I saw how Japan in these years was already advanced, and they have robots that already can clean the house. And I attended a kind of show where robots were dancing with the classical music, and they are performing like dancers. And that was the middle of the 80s. Okay, it's incredible. So that experience also, I said, wow, this is the future. And I had the first cell phone, telephone with a camera in the middle of the 80s. They already had a camera in the telephone. You can see on a screen, the picture of the person you are talking to. Okay, so after this, I come back to France. I spent another 10 years in 1990 to 2000. And in 2000, I was invited by the California Institute of Technology and the JPL, which is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of NASA in Pasadena, California. And that was absolutely an incredible experience because Caltech is 10 times smaller than the MIT. It's only a total of maybe 2,000 people, including everybody, students, staff, researchers, professors, and so on, 2,000 people. And they don't want to expand more. So it is very small, but it has the highest record of patents, okay? And I become very acquainted with the head of the tech transfer office at that time, and I discussed with him. He invited me from time to time to share lunch with him, and he said, "Oh, so Rachid, what have you been doing the last 2 weeks?" I said, "Oh, this and this." "Oh, can you tell me more?" I tell him, and he said, "Oh, this is interesting. You should file a patent." I said, "No, no need a patent. No, come with me." I came with him to his office, and we filed a patent. After 10 years spent in Caltech, I end up having 60 patents only with Caltech. Because the ambience, the culture, the local culture was there. And they were like encouraging you to be very creative and to, say, don't be shy, just say, yes, what you have done is maybe patentable, and who knows, maybe 1 year from now, we can convert this patent, which is provisional patent, to PCT, etc., and it can be extended to all over the world. One of the things I have seen actually during my tenure with Caltech is the classes where actually students were not there. So Professor comes to the classroom, and there was a camera, and the camera was recording the course, and then it's there, and the students can access to that course anytime, remotely. They don't need to be there physically. I said, "Wow, fantastic!" Number one. Number two, exams. There was like an exam, and the professor will put the subject of the exam outside his office on a chair, and the students will take the exam. And the rule was, the exam, let's say it takes 2 hours. So you choose any time to do your exam, but you stick to 2 hours from the time you start to the time you finish. And of course, you don't communicate, you don't share anything. So you are under what they call the honor system. Honor system means that we trust you. You are not going to cheat. But if you cheated, we will know it, okay? So anyway, these two things that I have learned from my experience in California Institute of Technology, that's why, exactly what Professor Talal said, that we don't need to have exams anymore. All what we need is people coming with innovation. This is absolutely incredible. This is fantastic. I like it. And I think that pushes people to think differently and say, hey, what can I bring? What ideas? Should I have to talk to my professors? And the professor will be just a guide to tell you what's going on. Is your invention something really new or not new? Is it useful, not useful? Is it patentable, not patentable? Can you become a billionaire after this invention? That's the other thing that professors can actually help the student to achieve. So anyway, now I am in Singapore since 2010, and it's another experience. Of course, I am in the middle of Asia, This country is one of the most developed countries in Asia, with very, strict rules about, cleanness and security and so on and so on. However, this is very important. What I learned the recent 2 weeks is that internet has been used by some guys to lure even the biggest bank in Singapore, which is called the OCBC. Some of the clients have been approached by someone from outside using internet, and they learned that they can put some money, they can invest in it. I myself received this kind of messages. Fortunately, I checked with the bank and they said, don't do it, don't do it. There were many millions of dollars that have been taken from this OCBC bank client because the guys didn't know how to use internet. So internet, this revolution, the digital revolution that Professor Talal spoke about, it's very useful if we learn how to use it. And we have to develop this critical, thinking. Not everything coming from internet is true. You have to double check, to ask people who can know better than us. So when I saw these messages coming from these guys, telling me, oh, you can invest in this and there's a return investment, I asked the bank. They said, don't do it. These guys, we know them. The police is investigating on them. So this is my messages. Again, the other thing is that, all these technologies, like digital technologies, I think there are two things. One is what we call the software, what we develop, the program, the code that we developed, okay? And there's also the hardware. And this is important that to think about the hardware that will be implied. We'll use the software. Artificial intelligence is just a program, but it has to go inside something physical, like an integrated circuit with some chips that are smart chips that can communicate and so on. So all of this has to be combined to address problems. So for instance, when I am, I have two citizenships. I am Moroccan and I am French. And France is, of course, a country that is more developed, I would say, from the technology and so on. And I look how the French government today is dealing with the COVID-19 situation, and how they are stuck in, because of paperwork and they have to go, et cetera, et cetera. When you use your cell phone in Singapore, you can access to any place without having to show your, what we call the passport, the sanitary passport, or et cetera. You don't need to have anything hardware. It's just they know who you are. Your cell phone is connected to your ID, so they know who you are, okay? And you can use it to enter any place without very easy. Yesterday, I was in Chinatown in Singapore because this is the New Year, the Chinese New Year. And I had to go to many places and so on. Every time I use my cell phone, I can access to any place freely. They know who I am. They know when I entered there. They know when I exited. Okay, so everything is under control. So some people see it as a loss of freedom, but you cannot at the same time try to solve a problem and keep 100% everything. So it's always a balance, a trade-off between using the technology and also, keeping some level of freedom. Anyway, this is my message. I think somehow, for me, it's a matter of pride to be part of this conference. I wish all the success, and I think I didn't speak much about the link between technology and education, but the COVID has accelerated something that already existed in the 90s and maybe in the last century. Only because people could not move easily, and this online learning and the teaching and so on has developed very nicely. But we have to make sure that this is accessible to everybody. Not everyone can have a computer. Not everyone can have a cell phone, and so on. So in a democratic system, we have to make sure that everybody has access to the information on time. With this, I would like to thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, بروفيسور رشيد
اسمح لي
يزامي.
سيد الرئيس، اسمح لي كلمة تعقيب فقط. أنا أود أن أشيد بأستاذنا الكبير راشد اليزمي، والذي أعتبره نموذج ما نحتاجه من مؤسساتنا التعليمية. وبالنسبة لموضوع الديمقراطية وحقوق الإنسان في المعرفة، أنا تقدمت في الأمم المتحدة بمشروع يعتبر إتاحة الفرصة لأن يدخل كل إنسان إلى عالم المعرفة، أي أن يكون عنده جهاز وأن يكون عنده اتصال، حقا من حقوق الإنسان. فالحقيقة أنا أتعلم منك وأفخر بأن في أمتنا هذه القدرة والكفاءة والمكانة والإبداع الذي تمثله. شكرا.
شكرا.
شكرا لكم جميعا. شكرا بروفيسور رشيد يزامي، المخترع والعالم المغربي، مخترع البطارية، بطارية الليثيوم القابلة للشحن. والآن أعتقد في حوالي أقل من 10 دقائق يتم شحن البطارية. نعم.